Hi, this is your host, Kristen Howe. I am so excited to welcome you to our call today with our guest, Debra Poneman. Debra spent the first decade of her adult life immersed in the world of spirituality, much of that time in silence and meditation while studying at the feet of the greatest spiritual masters of our day. She has also taught meditation to thousands, showing them the simple path to inner silence. But she is best known for her Yes to Success. I love that title. Yes to Success seminars, where she showed thousands more how to manifest outer success by applying some of the very same principles. Debra is a best-selling author and an award-winning speaker, but more importantly, Debra is a woman who truly embodies her teachings, and that is why some of the world's most renowned transformational leaders call her their mentor, hear her profound wisdom, and you on this call today, you will too. Now, on the call, you'll discover the only job we need to do in order to manifest everything we want. What Steven Tyler told Debra you have to do to manifest overnight success, how to put manifestation on autopilot once we get the energetic ball rolling, why some people manifest effortlessly while others struggle, and why we trust the pizza delivery man more than we trust the creator. I love that. Okay, that's funny. Debra, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to get into this. Welcome to the call.
Thank you so much. Yes, that is pretty funny about the pizza delivery man. But hey,
I can't wait to get into all of that. But before we do, what I'd love to have you do, because your story is pretty cool and it's pretty unique, and there's a lot of lessons that are revealed within your story. So if you could share that with us, that would be fantastic.
Well, as you said in the introduction, I did spend about a decade of my life with some of the greatest spiritual masters, a lot of that time in meditation and teaching meditation. But after about 10 years of that, I realized that I had to actually switch things up a bit and make a little bit of money. And I actually got a job as an investment advisor, which was, I won't even go into how wrongly suited I was for that job, but suffice it to say that if I sold an investment, I'd go home and weep because I was afraid that that person might lose their money. So you get the picture. But we also know that whatever we do is just a doorway leading us to something greater for ourselves. And because I was an investment advisor, I went to a lot of seminars on how to be a better investment advisor. And one day I went to a seminar thinking that it was going to be on 401ks, and it was actually kind of a new age seminar. And this was in the very, very early 80s. And the man who was leading the seminar was talking about the law of attraction in terms of money. And it just blew my mind. He was saying that the quickest way to become wealthy was not necessarily by investing wisely, but by wishing other people success and prosperity, and by thinking in terms of success and prosperity instead of lack and limitation. And this completely blew my mind because I had never heard of these concepts before, the power of our minds. So I was so blown away by what the man was saying that I did what any intelligent person would do. I went the next morning, quit my job, and I spent the next 4 months studying these great masters like Napoleon Hill and Wallace Wattles and Emmett Fox. And I decided I was going to put together my own unique seminar. And after about 4 months, I took the juiciest gems from each of these great masters of Western esoteric thought, and I put my seminar together, Yes to Success. And what's interesting about my story is that when I was ready to launch the seminar, that's when all the fear came up. I'm 28 years old. My degree was a bachelor's of the science of creative intelligence from Maharishi International University. I had no business experience except teaching meditation. I drove a beat-up 10-year-old Chevy Bel Air. I was completely broke. I was a woman, which made a difference in the early 80s, and I was going to go out and tell people how to be successful. But and we see how funny that could be. However, what I knew from everything that I'd studied was that an idea comes to you because it wants to be manifested by you. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why we all have different ideas that come to us. And the idea to start the seminar company came to me. It didn't come to my next door neighbor or to my best friend. And not only does the creator give us this idea, whisper it into our ear, I say because the creator can't come down and give the seminar him or herself. So the creator has to pick somebody through which to manifest. So the creator whispered in my ear to begin this seminar. And I also knew that an idea comes to you at the time that it needs to be manifested on earth, not just for you, but for the rest of creation. It needs to be manifested at that time. And I know so many of us have had great ideas. We didn't manifest them. And then a few years later, we see somebody who did, and we're like, wait a second, I had that idea. Yes, you did. But you didn't take the steps to manifest it. So I did. I didn't wait until I thought I was ready, because if you wait until you think you're ready, you will never think you're ready, and you'll go to the grave with your idea, because in the relative field of existence, there will always be loose ends. So loose ends at all, I set up a seminar, and the rest is history. Within a few years, it was being taught in 12 major cities and 7 countries, and within 3-4 years after that, I was about to launch my own TV talk show. I had my own infomercial. I had a major New York publisher wanting to publish my book. And as you know, Kristen, I gave it all up. And I gave it all up really at the height of my success. And that was because I had to be true to my own teachings, which were to follow your heart. And I gave it all up when my daughter was born. And I realized that I wanted to be a mom at home. I didn't want to go. And actually, I was supposed to do a seminar in Singapore. I didn't want to go to Singapore. I didn't want to leave her to go to the bathroom, let alone leave her to go to Singapore. And when all of the publisher and the producer and my clients called and said, oh, we heard you're your baby, you know, when are you going to get going again? I said, you know what, you're going to have to call me back in 18 years. And that actually turned into 21 years after my son was born. But one of the things I want to share, and this is really the end of what I have to say about my story, is that people said to me, have you gone out of your mind? And I said to them, absolutely. I went right out of my mind and right into my heart, because my heart was with this child. And I know that one thing is true, and that we are all put on earth for a purpose. And if you take away some time from your quote-unquote career to be with your kids, or work with AIDS patients in Africa, or work on a political campaign, or hold your grandmother's hand for a year while she's dying, that detour is your life's purpose, as long as you're listening to your inner guidance, even if other people think you've gone out of your mind. The impulses of your heart are nothing less than your destiny calling you. So you can't ignore these impulses. I say follow them, and you will end up at your ultimate destination. Actually, it's probably the only route there. And one other thing, not only are we each here for a purpose, but nobody can do what you were put here to do. They might do something similar, but there are people waiting whose lives you are supposed to impact. And something else you can take to the bank, and that is 20 years go by in the wink of an eye. And I mean, I don't even remember those 20 years. And I'm back, and the kids are grown, but I'm back with so much more richness to share from the years I spent being with my kids. And that's my journey.
I love that. And like I said, there's so much to be learned from within that journey that is so powerful. Now, tell me this. What's your basic philosophy around manifestation? I mean, that's what we're here talking about. So I'd love to know your basic thoughts and feelings about it.
So basic. Okay, bottom line. Well, first of all, what I absolutely know is that each one of us has the power to create lives that we truly love, where you wake up with your heart filled with gratitude just for being alive. And in fact, everything you want to manifest is actually already here. It's vibrating around you. It's waiting for you to let it in. And that includes radiant health, fulfilling love, prosperity, even profound inner peace. They're all your birthright. You know, in the Bible it says, all that I have is yours. The Father doesn't say, some of what I have is yours. A little of what I have is yours. All that I have is yours. But we're like the child stepping on the garden hose and then saying to their dad, Daddy, there's no water. And then the dad says, well, honey, you're stepping on the hose. And so, oh, yeah, that's right. So she takes her foot off the hose and starts watering again. And then she inadvertently steps on the hose again and says, it stopped again. There must be no water. Well, there is an abundance of water. What we have to do is learn how to stop stepping on the hose, because it is just waiting to flow to us, everything we want to manifest. And it's just a matter of learning how at every moment to be able to flow your energy in a way that supports an amazing life and not in a way that sabotages an amazing life. The good news is that once you develop certain simple habits, the flow takes on a life of its own. And I want to give you one more, as long as we're on water analogies. I don't know if you did this when you were a little kid, but when I was a little kid, my friend had one of those big pools, but it wasn't a built-in pool. It was like above the ground, and it was round. What her mother would have us do, like at her birthday parties, is we would go into this pool, and we'd line up around the inside of the edge, and we'd start walking through the water. And it was really hard at first. It was hard to walk through the water, but then it got easier and easier and easier and easier. And then she'd say, okay, everybody float. And then we'd lie down on our stomachs, and the current would just take us round and round and round the pool. So what I love to teach people, ways that you can begin that flow so that eventually you can just let go and that current is just going to take you.
I love that. Okay, so sticking with the water analogies, where do you say we should start in terms of getting off the water hose? You know, how can we begin to stop sabotaging and start actually supporting the creation of what we want? Because I think that's where so many people are going, okay, I get it, but how do we get off the hose?
Right, exactly right. And the water analogy is like, okay, I get it in the swimming pool, but how do we do it in life?
Right.
And, you know, one thing I want to make clear is that no one gets a great life handed to them on a silver platter. The agreement we made when we came into this life is that you'll take on certain challenges, and many from lessons that your soul didn't finish in your previous lifetime, so you came back again to master them in this lifetime. And again, that's why the challenges are different for all of us. I always think of life as like that reality show called The Amazing Race. I don't know if you ever watched it. I watched it only because a friend of mine was on it. But you volunteer to be on The Amazing Race. You actually even fight for a space to be on this reality show, even though you know that some of the challenges that you're going to have to face are very scary. Like one person they had a fear of heights. So what do they have him do? They have him diving out of a plane, okay? Another person expressed that they had a fear of like snakes and creatures that live in the desert. Where did his amazing race have to go? Right across the desert. So the contestants have to face their worst fears, and they keep on going because they want to win the $1 million at the end. But I think more importantly, they want to experience the satisfaction of taking on and conquering each challenge. We came into this life knowing that we're going to have some great challenges. The difference is that in life, you're only competing against yourself and your own fear and your own doubt. But what you win when you do it is so much more than $1 million. And, you know, until we get to a place of that spontaneous flow, what most of us do is we use pain as our motivator. We feel toxic. We can't even think a thought, or worse, we develop some disease. That's when we start eating well and exercising and taking care of ourselves. Or when our spouse wants to leave us, that's when we start being kind and supportive. Or when we speak ill of someone and it gets back to them, that's when we stop speaking ill of people. But when we're completely in the flow, we don't need pain to motivate us any longer. We just spontaneously take care of those things. And that's when we can let go and we can let God. And most of us, we're not there yet. So we still need to use our individual will. I mean, people say, oh, we should just be in the flow and God will tell us the next step. Like, not yet. It would be nice, but that isn't what we came onto the planet to do. We have some challenges. I just got to tell, this popped into my mind, one more story. I'll tell it fast, but it's the story of the preacher. that's walking along the country road. And as the preacher is walking along the country road, he sees all of these different houses along the road, and one is so beautiful and it's really well kept up. And then he sees another house that's all kind of ramshackled, and the paint is peeling, and there's weeds growing, and a rusted out car in the backyard. And every house he passes is very different. And then all of a sudden he comes upon this house that is so glorious. He has never seen a more beautiful, flower boxes overflowing in every window, and flowers along the path to the road, and the manicured gardens in the backyard for just as far as I could see, just overflowing with abundance. And as the preacher is standing there admiring this farm, the farmer comes out. So the preacher hails the farmer, and the farmer comes over, and the preacher says to the farmer, God has blessed you with a very beautiful farm, my good man. And the farmer looks around and he says, you're right, preacher, but you should have seen this place when God had it all to himself.
I love that. I think that's fantastic.
And, it's the truth. We're all given a plot of land, but then it is completely up to us what we do with it. And by the way, Steven Tyler, one of the things that I did in this lifetime is I wrote one of the Chicken Soup books, and it was Chicken Soup for the American Idol Soul. And I interviewed 50 American Idols and the judges and the producers, and it was a blast. But Steven Tyler, who is an angel, by the way, just like an angel of a man, when I went backstage, because now I can go backstage basically, or to a taping. Right. Usually I'll go every year to one of the tapings. And one year I went, and a friend of mine had my book with her. I didn't bring it with, but we saw Steven Tyler, and she said to Steven, Debra wrote this book. And he looked at it, he goes, oh my gosh, I love this book. This is one of my favorite books. He's like going crazy. He said, they gave this to me when I was going to be a judge so that I could understand a little bit about the culture and, what the different idol contestants experienced and on. And then he looks at me in the eye and he says, I give this book to young people in my life so that they understand that becoming an overnight success takes a lot of hard work.
Yeah. Right. But what we see as overnight is purely because we weren't aware of you before, but you've been working at it for years and years.
And that's the point. It's like, and right now, the beautiful thing about the energy in creation is that once we get that flow going, it is so much easier. That the energy in creation is not about struggle anymore, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to take action. Mm-hmm. You do have to take action. And I'll give you an example of something everybody can do to begin the flow. And by the way, when he said hard work, he meant voice lessons and going to auditions and learning instruments. And I say for the people on this call, because we're all leaders in the realm of light workers, and you wouldn't be on the call if you weren't a light worker and if you weren't somebody who knows about energetics. I believe that the quote-unquote work we have to do is energetic work. And I'll just give you an idea of something that people can do. I have so many things, but at a very early age, I actually had an awakening experience. And when I had this experience, what I realized was that at every moment, we're given a choice. And I realized that if you choose one way, it's going to lead you down the road to an unhappy life. And if you make a different choice, it will lead you down the road to deep inner contentment. And what happened was, when I was a young teenager, I was in with the in crowd. In fact, I was kind of the leader of the in crowd. And part of the code of ethics is, when you're really cool, was that you're required to be mean and exclusive and catty and, leave people out so everyone knows that you are the coolest. And one day, as a group, the girls that I was with, they were kind of being mean and exclusive and catty. And there was this young girl who was also in our grade, and somebody had told her that she could be in our club. And I remember this like it was yesterday. Her name was Lori, and she came up to us with her eyes as bright as the sun and the eagerness and shine on her face. And she said, I heard that I could be in your club. I don't remember the words, but that was basically what she was coming over to us to express. And some of the other girls said, are you kidding me? I mean, you are totally not cool enough to be in our club. And at that moment, not only did I see the light completely go away from her eyes and her face, but I felt it in my physiology. Now I'm feeling it again like it was yesterday. And it was almost like a holographic experience. I felt her pain.
Wow.
And I felt the contraction and the heat in my body and the sorrow and the grief. And at that moment, I realized that one person's pain is the pain of the entire world. And I realized at that moment that I had been part of causing that pain. And at that moment, I made the commitment that I would never cause any other human being pain again. And unconsciously, I might have done that. Consciously, I don't think I've ever done it because, again, of that experience of knowing that one person's pain is the entire world's pain. And you know what? If I do, screw up, or I think that I might have screwed up, what I do is I just put my hand on my heart and I say, even though I feel like I may have caused my son pain, I say to myself, I love you, I accept you, I forgive you. And I just breathe into that in my heart. But consciously, if we want to create flow, one of the greatest ways that we can create flow is living from the heart and being loving. And one of the greatest ways we could stop the flow is to hurt another human being.
And doesn't that go as far as to hurting ourselves? I mean, what would you say about the amount of judgment and we, it's almost like within ourselves sometimes the voice is going, are you kidding? You're not cool enough to be, we're kind of self-imposing that. So what would you say about that?
Well, I would say, number one, yes, most people are their biggest critics. Some people came into this life with that as what they need to work through. There's a Kabbalah word, there's a word that is used in Kabbalah, tikkun, and tikkun means repair, correct? What we came into this life to repair. Some people it's self-love. Some people it's love towards others. But what I say is we know what our tikkun is. Some people have the tikkun that they're always broke. Another person is they're always screwing up their relationships. Another person, even to the fact that somebody who is always late. So what your tikkuns are, or people who keep showing up in your life. And what I say is that when that shows up, that's what you came on earth to work through, okay? I'll tell you, that $1 million that people get if they win the Amazing Race? Mm-hmm. Most people, what we do is we try to avoid the tikkuns. When we see that objectionable person showing up in our life, and again, we run in the other direction. When we are faced with maybe needing to speak up for ourselves, we run in the other direction. But if we only knew the truth, which is when one of these tikkun shows up, run towards it, because that's what you're here for. And God, higher self, whatever you want to call that power, gave you everything you need to overcome that challenge. And peace and happiness and self-love is there on the other side. And the spiritual gain that you get from not running away from it is worth so much more than $1 million. If we knew that we got $1 million every time we moved out of our comfort zone, spoke up for ourselves, asked our boss for a raise, expressed to somebody how much we love them instead of being in fear around it, if we knew how much that was worth, which is much more than $1 million in spiritual gain, we would wake up every morning saying, let me have at it. Give me the biggest tikkuns that you have, God, because I am willing to face it. that self-love, again, it starts with when you're feeling contracted, putting your hand on your heart and saying, I love you unconditionally, and breathe into it. And sometimes even say, when you feel that pain or that contraction, sometimes this is in your solar plexus, in your throat, in your heart, breathe into it and ask what it's there to teach you. And oftentimes there is a very clear lesson of the next step to take or why it's there in the first place.
Wow, I love that. Okay, so is that, as we look at all of this, I mean, that's so powerful and profound. So thank you for sharing that with us, because I think that's something that people can do right away to sort of keep getting themselves in alignment with what they do want and the energy they want to be giving out to the world, which I think is so powerful. You say that there's only one job really that we need to do in order to manifest everything we want. And by the way, I just want to have the caveat there that when I say manifest everything we want, all of the stuff is awesome and great, but I'm talking about inside first, the outside follows. So what is that one job?
And I'm so glad that you said that, inside first and outside follows, because it's actually what I said already. The one job that we have to do is to get into the flow, because that flow, sometimes I call it light, that light contains everything in it, not only to bring us everything we want, because everything is contained in that light, but to dispel the darkness. Mm-hmm. So once we get into that flow of grace, once we get into that flow of light, that's how we manifest everything. And again, there are a million ways that we can, I call it build up a flow bank, build up a flow bank account.
Okay.
Because, and sometimes we hear these things over and over and we think, oh God, Debra's saying the same old thing, but do we really do it? Are we really hearing it? Like being aware that every word you speak and every thought you think really does send out a vibration. And what the law of attraction is simply that when that thought goes out, it attracts everything like itself, everything that vibrates like itself, and like a boomerang, as you sow, so shall you reap. It will come back to you with, if it's a wonderful thought of joy, if it's sending somebody love, if it's rejoicing in somebody's success, if it's being happy that somebody got something that you want, then that thought is going to go out. It's going to pick up everything that vibrates like it, and it is going to come back to you, and it's going to come back in the form of, good health or the perfect partner or that desired prosperity. But you need to get that flow going. It's building up the bank account. Okay. And likewise, if you send out negativity about someone or speak ill of someone or denigrate somebody's success, then you're sending that out. It's going to attract everything that vibrates like itself, and it's going to come back to you in the form of illness or sadness or loss or not getting the job that you want. Most of us, we just don't make the connection. Okay, we think that if we speak ill of someone, then someone's going to speak ill of us. No, it's energetic. Okay, and it's all up to us. Or something else, Kristen, I'm sure that people on your wonderful teleseries say that appreciation is important. It's like, appreciation, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? How many of us get up before we even get out of bed and think of the things that we appreciate? The sun pouring through our window, our mate lying next to us, our dog at our feet. No, we get up grumpy, I'm arthritic, my knees, where is the toothpaste? Somebody took my toothpaste. Why do I have to go to this stupid job? And those are the vibrations that we're putting out. I mean, how many people really remember that when they walk over and they switch on that little box on their wall called the light switch, that the light goes on? I mean, are you kidding me? Do you know how many people in this world, the huge majority, would give anything to be able to, they don't even know that it even exists, that you could flip a switch and you have heat in the most frigid winter and cool air in the hottest summer, that you have light, that you have music, that you have a fan swirling around on your ceiling. Are you freaking kidding me? But no, we complain about how expensive the electric bill is. It actually makes me feel like crying. I know I'm like a big, gigantic crybaby, but really, it's like put your attention on what you want, what you have. I talk about that 10-year-old beat-up Chevy Bel Air that I had when I started Yes to Success. I never complained about that 10-year-old beat-up Chevy Bel Air. I got in that car every morning. I gave it a name. Its name was Shirley. I said, Shirley, thank you. I love you. Thank you for getting me from point A to point B. And I also put up a picture. I went to the Mercedes store, and I got a catalog, and I cut out the picture of the Mercedes I wanted. And Kristen, I'm not going to go into every detail, but literally about 5 years later, that exact Mercedes was given to me.
Wow.
But I don't think it would have been given to me had I not appreciated my Chevy Bel Air named Shirley every time I got into it. Appreciation has manifestation power. And can I just say one other thing?
Absolutely.
That I think is powerful, the powerful ability to manifest. And it's because these are things we could do every day. This is not some thing that we have to take a course to learn. You don't have to learn how to appreciate the light when you switch it on, or the water faucet when that clean, pure water comes out, instead of, complaining that it might have fluoride in it. Get a water purifier, but don't complain. And the other thing that we can do is to never forget the sacredness of every human being, because every human being is created in God's image. So this is something else we could do to get that current going, to get that flow going, to get that light flowing in our life that removes every single obstacle. And I love, Kristen, I love doing things like tapping. I love going to healers. I love anybody who can help me remove obstacles. I'm a glutton for that stuff. But I also believe that the majority really of the things that we can do, they're in our own hands. And one is to love every human being, and the respect with which we treat people, like somebody like you who's a great teacher. We need to treat the lady who takes our order at the Taco Bell. And the kindness that we show to people that we hold in high esteem, like maybe religious leaders, political leaders, we have to show to, the housekeeper who cleans our room, because it might be more difficult for you to see God in a coworker who spreads lies about you, but the Creator doesn't see any difference. We're all children of God. The Creator sees no difference between the homeless man who sleeps on a park bench and an honored guest for whom we take out our best china. And the Creator loves the drug dealer as much as the Creator loves the light worker. And you know what? Maybe even more. Because sometimes when we have kids and one's a little bit of a problem child and the other is the ideal child, it's not that we love the problem child more, but maybe our heart goes out to them a little bit more. So don't think that the drug dealer or the people who are, locked up on Rikers Island, that God loves them any less. And I love the quote, if you cannot see God in the next person you meet, you need look no further. And when you do look into the eyes of that person who is panhandling on your corner, who you used to walk to the other side of the street, you don't even have to give them anything but love, but look into their eyes and say, I love you, the Creator loves you. That's how you keep that flow going. Can I share a little story about my son, Daniel, I was sure. He just popped into my mind because, I don't know, I think about my kids because I just spent these 20 years with my kids. I say, I have another talk that I give called Everything I Learned at Chuck E. Cheese. But because I spent a lot of time there. As a matter of fact, we told our daughter she's going to have her wedding there. But my son, Daniel, is a great example of somebody who has amazing flow in his life. Obstacles seem to disappear for him. And he exemplifies this treating everybody like they're God. When he was in 8th grade, this is a great story. When he was in 8th grade, his class was going to their trip to Washington, D.C. We live outside of Chicago, and it's a gigantic deal in 8th grade that all the kids go to this trip to Washington, D.C. He and his friends were so excited. For weeks, that's all they could talk about was the trip to Washington, D.C. And the night before the trip came, and I went to a meeting for the parents where they told us how much money the kids could bring, and, that there was going to be a swimming pool at the hotel, so they should bring their swimming trunks, and where we met the bus, and this and that and the other. Anyway, so I'm at this meeting, and the last thing they did was they gave out the room assignments. And as they're reading the room assignments, first they read out the girls' room assignments, and then they're reading out the guys' room assignments, and they're reading out the names, and Asher will be in a room with Dewan and Teddy and Freddie. And I'm like, wait a second, those are Daniel's 4 best friends. And then he says, and Josh will be in the room with Jonathan and Kiwan and Bobby. I'm like, oh my God, those are Daniel's other 4 best friends. Anyway, the teacher goes through the entire list, no Daniel. So of course I'm thinking, what did he do now? No, I'm thinking, where's Daniel? So I'm about to get up, and then the teacher says, oh, and Daniel will be in a room with Eric and Eric's personal aide.
Oh.
And I have to tell you, just to be honest with you, my heart sank, because Eric is this adorable boy who is over at the house a lot and who I absolutely love, and who's a good friend of Daniel's and who is autistic. And I went into mama bear mode because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Daniel has been looking forward to this and, hanging with his friend, and he's going to be in a room with Eric and Eric's personal aide, who's kind of like a very unhip 30-something-year-old guy. So I'm driving home, and I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to break this news to Daniel? And I go in the house, and he's in the den, and I say, so Daniel, tomorrow's, big trip, and guess what? There's a swimming pool at your hotel, and you could bring swimming trunks. We'll have to pack your trunks. And, I told him a little, and I said, oh, yeah, and Daniel, I just want you to know if this upsets you, perhaps I could do something about it, but they put you in a room with Eric and Eric's personal aide. And there's silence, and Daniel looks at me he kind of cocks his head, and he says, Mom. I'm like, oh, God. He says, Mom, they didn't put me in a room with Eric. I asked to be with Eric. And then he said, wow. It's his class trip, too. And I was thinking about it, and I realized that if he wasn't in a room with me, he'd probably get left out.
Unbelievable.
And the reason I share that with you is because that's how Daniel is. And now that he's the ripe old age of 21, he started a business when he was 14 where he actually helps high school basketball players get college scholarships. And he doesn't get, people who are going to go to Division I schools. He goes into the hood and he finds these kids who would be lost under the radar because their parents don't quite know how to get them in an exposure league or can't afford for them to be in an exposure league. So Daniel finds them and hooks them up with college coaches, and he's gotten scores of kids who would otherwise probably be flipping burgers. He's gotten scores of kids scholarships. And I tell you that because Daniel knows how to be in the flow, and everybody wants to be a part of his world because by his love and by treating everybody like God, that's what brings the flow into his life, which is a really good life.
Wow, that's just there's so much to learn from that. I'm so glad you shared that with us. That's amazing. And actually, what I want to do, I know that you said there's something practical that we can do, that everybody listening can do to be in the flow, to be in, quote unquote, the vibration of yes, and therefore be effortlessly manifesting in our lives. What is that thing that we can all do? And everybody listen up on this.
Okay. Well, I was thinking, I know that you love to give your listeners some exercise, and I was thinking, okay, I could do a meditation, a visualization, but I decided that I want to give everybody something really practical that they can do right now to loosen that flow. I mean, I know I've already shared a bunch of things, but this is like a concrete thing. One of the things we hardly think about that actually clogs up the flow in a gigantic way is what I call incompletions. And that is anything that's incomplete in your life, okay? It's energetically holding you back. That includes incomplete business, things like debts not paid, debts owed to you and not acknowledged. And by the way, if you have a debt, even if you call that person and say, I'm not in a great financial situation right now, it's going to get better, but I'd like to at least pay $10 a month, that will get the flow moving, okay? Whereas debts unacknowledged is one of the worst things to stop the energetic flow, especially of your prosperity. Same thing with if somebody owes money to you, same thing. Give them a call and say, I know you're having a hard financial time right now. However, what I would like to request is how much can you pay me on a monthly basis? And because believe it or not, that's stopping your flow, that energy of having somebody owe you something and it's not flowing in. But even something as seemingly insignificant like a borrowed item not returned, or your old aunt that's in a nursing home and you haven't visited her, or promises not kept, or of course things between you or another person that aren't resolved, or forgiveness not given, clear it all up. It is holding you back. Each one of those things is like an invisible cord. And by the way, that lack of forgiveness or feelings unexpressed, probably the strongest cord. There's an old Sufi saying, as long as there's room in your heart for one enemy, your heart's not a safe place for a friend. I say if there's anybody who you're holding ill will towards, work on that. Really, if you do ask for somebody's forgiveness, you are freeing the flow for yourself. Whether they want to take it or not, that's up to them. But, there's expression to forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. So what I want people to do, not if you're driving, but I would invite people to do is to take out a piece of paper and write at the top incompletions and just start writing down a list of anything in your life that's incomplete, even if it's a book you borrowed or that broken blender that's been sitting under your counter, throw it away. And I'm not going to go into this as deeply as I do, like when I give my own seminars, but physical clutter stops the flow. So the incompletion might be to clean up the pile of clutter at the top of the stairs, or clean out that, that medicine cabinet that has old prescriptions in it from 10, 20 years ago. They're all incompletions. They're all blocking the flow. So I'd like to invite people to write a few things down, and everybody has a few little things, big things. I know they're pouring out of your brain right now, that person that you need to clear that feeling between your heart and theirs, the person you're having a hard time forgiving, all of those things on the shelf that aren't yours, get them back to their owner. And now what I'd like everybody to do is circle the easiest and the most difficult, and commit to yourself that within the next 48 hours, you'll complete them both. We want to do the easiest one. Maybe it's just to clean up, the junk drawer in the kitchen. It'll take you, 10 minutes. And the hardest one is whatever, to express some forgiveness to somebody. Do them both within 48 hours. I'm giving you 2 days, 48 hours, and I promise you that miracles will occur. And by the way, if the incompletion involves another person, like extending the olive branch, once you've done your part from your heart, you're complete. The other person's response is not your responsibility. I'll tell you, I know we are nearing the end, but I'm going to tell a very, very quick story. There's a woman in one of my seminars, and she was estranged from her father for decades for many reasons, which I don't need to go into, but it was definitely an incompletion for her. But she couldn't bring herself to call him. So what she did was every day for 30 days, she wrote down on a piece of paper a loving memory of him from her childhood. maybe a fun time they had together, something kind he'd done, or a time they laughed, or just something she appreciated about him. She said the first few were easy, but when she got to around number 15, 16, 20, it was really getting hard. But what she did is she did all 30, and then she sent the jar to him. But here's the important part. She never heard from him, but she let it go without any expectation. She was complete. And a few years later, when her father divorced his then wife, the wife called my friend Laura and told her that when he left, something that she thought Laura would want to know, that when he left in great anger, the only thing he took were the clothes in the closet, his toiletries, in the jar.
Wow.
So you never know, but just know that on an energetic level, you have opened up an amazing flow. And it might not come back to you even directly from that person, but energetically you have unstuck a very stuck flow.
That's incredible. And I love that. And I know stories like that as well. And it is so true. And it just takes a certain amount of faith. And I think that's really important. And that brings me to, and yes, we are running out of time, but I'm still going to ask you this because I can't let you get away without asking it. What do you mean when you say that we trust the pizza delivery man more than we trust the creator? What's
it's funny
going on there?
Because it has to do with faith. And, a lot of people, one of the things I teach is goal setting. And a lot of people are like, again, let God. I am so all about letting God, and I am so all about goal setting. I believe that we should absolutely write down our goals. One reason is that it clarifies our thoughts when they're all over the place, but writing helps us get focused about what we really want. I was at a seminar once where the leader said to someone in the audience, Carol, have you received anything from the Neiman Marcus catalog this week? And she said, no. And then he said, well, have you ordered anything from the Neiman Marcus catalog? And she said, no. And then he said, well, that might be why you haven't received anything. And we're like people sitting at home waiting for the package to arrive, but we haven't put in the order. And when we order something from the Neiman Marcus catalog, let's say it's a shirt, you don't just write down shirt. You write the size and the color and the style, and then we send in the order, and then we let go, and we know it's going to be fulfilled. And I believe that when we write down our goals, the cosmic order takers of the universe, the forces in nature that want you to be fulfilled, are happy, or God, if you want to say the God of your understanding, is thrilled that you've put in your order. God is dancing a jig because now God knows what you want. So I say, let yourself desire, think big, write it down. And I'm a great advocate of taking action, but I'm also a great action of, as you say, trust. Trust that the order has been placed. You don't, and that it will arrive in perfect timing. Don't obsess. It's like when you order a pizza. Once you call Domino's and order the pizza, you basically stop thinking about it until it arrives. You don't call back and inquire, have they put on the mushrooms yet? You don't call back and ask if the delivery, how many more stops the delivery guy has to make. You don't call and you don't, think about what would happen if the pizza doesn't show up. You don't visualize the pizza or, focus on the pizza. You just put in your order and you know it's going to arrive. And of course it does. But it seems like so many of us trust the Domino's delivery guy more than we trust God. And I
you're
say,
so right.
Put in your order and trust.
And I love
trust that your desire will arrive in perfect timing, which isn't necessarily your timing, because the Creator has a much bigger vision. And if you don't get what you want when you think you want it, that's just because it wouldn't have been good for you if you got it at that time. And you always know that in hindsight. Trust and foresight.
Perfect. That's so perfect. Hey, Debra, I want to know, what are some of your favorite, like one or two of your favorite success stories from people that have worked with you?
Oh, my gosh. Well, as long as we're talking about manifesting, I had a gentleman who came to one of my seminars, and he had been so beat up and so disappointed in his life that he was afraid to desire, truthfully. But he went through all of the different exercises, the systematic way that I teach people to put their order into that order taker. And he broke through the boundaries, which I teach people how to do in my seminar. And he allowed himself to desire exactly what he wanted. And this was a man who had just turned 60, and he had a desire to actually get some of his music published. He also was out of work. His attitude was, there is no way anybody's going to hire me because I'm 60 and, they're only hiring young people. Anyway, using the tools and techniques that he learned from me, in a few months, not only was he in his dream job making more money in a month than he used to make in a year, but he's now a published singer. Or what do you call it? Published. Somebody found some music that he made, some children's music that he had made 30 years before, loved it, and asked if they could publish it. And they did. They made recordings, and it's being sold now. And actually, I just downloaded some of it on iTunes the other day.
How cool is that? That's awesome. Actually, I know you put together a special offer for everybody listening. So what I want to do is I want to have you talk us through it. Does that work for you?
That works for me.
Brilliant. Okay, so go check this out right now so you can sort of follow along, and it's pretty cool what she's offering. To access this page for yourself, simply click on the special offer button that's on this page. So take it away, Debra. What's there?
Well, one of the things that you mentioned in your introduction, that there are several, actually many, transformational leaders who are household names and New York Times bestselling authors, and who actually got their start at Yes to Success in the early 80s, and they attribute their huge success to utilizing the principles that they learned in Yes to Success. And there are also people who realize that their heart's desire was not to be a best-selling author or not to run an international corporation, even though that's what they thought they wanted. They realized that their heart's desire was to garden or to be a mom or dad at home. So what I allow people to do with the Knowledge and Yes to Success is I create the space that not only allows people to get in touch with their deepest heart's desire, but to actually manifest it. My program has 8 modules. First of all is, what is success? I think people are confused, and as you said earlier about manifestation, success is an inside job, but once we learn how to work from the inside out, then the outer manifestation is really just a cakewalk. So what people learn is the power of manifestation, the power of attitude to create the life you want. I teach a very, very unique system of goal setting, unlike anything anybody has ever experienced before. I also, believe it or not, in the Yes to Success seminar, I teach time management, because I absolutely believe that success cannot flow through chaos and disorder. And that sometimes is the biggest block for people, is they can't get that time management piece down. So I teach time and space management. I also teach very important principles of creating health, because again, if we want to manifest success, people don't know where to begin. Diet, exercise, all of these things that people teach us to do to reverse the aging process, to feel younger, to think more clearly. What I've done is I've distilled all of those down to very usable, implementable techniques that people can do to create incredibly good health and clear thinking Also, I have a whole module on prosperity and how to unblock the flow of money and financial and material prosperity. By the way, not only do people get all of these modules immediately downloaded to their computer, but also all of the written materials. And this is the original materials that I used in Yes to Success over 20 years ago, and so much more. It's very much updated. But then I also give people 3 bonuses, and these are presentations. One that I gave at a wealth attraction boot camp, probably the best talk I ever gave on creating wealth. One presentation that I did called the Effortless Path to True Success that I gave at a event that Janet and Chris Atwood put on that I was invited to be a speaker. And believe it or not, I even have a module where I gave a talk on what the American Idols, remember, there are hundreds of thousands, millions of people who audition for American Idol, and only a few make it to the top. And I have a presentation that is so juicy about what these kids knew. And some of them weren't even the best singers or the best looking or even the most talented. And everybody who's an American Idol fan knows this, that they knew ways to manifest success that other people don't. So I even have a talk on that, and there you have it.
Wow. Okay, so everybody go check that out, because this is really just an extraordinary offer that she's put together for everybody listening.
Simply click on the special offer button on this page.
And yes, I highly encourage it. Go check this out. Debra is one of the most fantastic people I have ever been privileged to talk with and interview, and you're really doing yourself right by checking this out. And Debra, you've been amazing, of course. And what I would love to know is how you want to send us all off. What parting thought do you want to give us?
Oh, boy, this is always my favorite part. And then okay. Oh, all right, I got something. Actually, 2 things. One is there's a quote by my friend Neil Donald Walsh, Messages from God, and it's one of my favorite messages where he says that, I'm going to paraphrase it, that life offers you an amazing opportunity in every single moment to not only increase the flow, but in the process to see and experience who you really are. So I invite people to watch yourself today and look at what you're doing moment to moment and why, and ask yourself, what does this have to do with my reason for being here? Is this what I've come all the way to Earth to experience? And if you ask yourself that in the middle of what you're doing and the answer is a resounding yes, then keep doing it. But if the answer is no, then ask yourself, then why in the world am I doing it? Really, what in the world am I doing? What am I involved in every day? And what does this have to do with my soul's purpose? Because you did choose here to be here at this time, and this is me speaking, and this is the most exciting time to be alive ever in the history of mankind. And you chose to be a leader, a light worker, and if you didn't, you wouldn't be on this call. You have no idea how many people you inspired just by your light, not even speaking a word, just being who you are every day. And we're all in this together. And when you put into action what you now know about how to use your power to get that flow going and have success and happiness and peace for yourself, I also want you to know that you'll be adding to a current that will sweep the entire planet. The more people who are in that flow, we will end poverty, we will end hunger, we will end hate, we will bring about an age of light and of love, and it's in the hands of each and every one of us at every minute of every day. And the first step is just to say, yes, I'll do it.
I love that. What a magnificent way to end the call. I don't even want to muddy it with my own thoughts. I think it's just fantastic. I so appreciate you, Debra. I so appreciate you, everybody listening. What a fantastic combination, the amazing people listening and the amazing Debra Poneman. So thank you so much. And until the next time, everyone, keep manifesting your life's dreams. Bye-bye.